Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
What's up and welcome back to BarDown Blackhawk Talk, episode number 12, presented by the Barroom Network. My name is Vinnie Parise, and this is my brother, Joey Parise. And Joseph, what a number, 12. What do you think of number 12?
It's a good number. It's a good number.
Who's the best number 12 in the history of the sport? I think we have a clear answer for me.
Yeah. Probably Jerome McGinley.
Yep.
Played majority with Calgary, then half a season in Pittsburgh and a full season in Boston and Hall of Fame and LA. And LA.
You're forgetting a big one.
And
Colorado Avalanche for 3 years.
Oh yeah, he did finish he finished there, right?
I think he got that last season in with the Kings at the end.
I remembered LA. Yeah, he played
Colorado to LA.
Yeah. Scored 30
and
with
that's
Boston.
Number retire guy, like he'll be in the Hall of Fame. Right? Like he's
yeah, definitely.
Crap ton of goals, like one of the greatest players ever, to be honest. He's the greatest player in the history of the Flames, and that's an old historic franchise.
Yeah.
You enjoyed having him on the Bruins there for a minute. He was pretty good there.
Yeah, he remember the deadline. He was like supposed to go to Boston and he refused it, and then he went to Pittsburgh and then he got swept by Boston in the 2013 Eastern Conference Finals, and then the next year he signs full time with Boston, plays the whole year, and they win the President's Trophy. It's a good time.
It makes me wonder if they would have beat the Hawks had they gotten that deal done for Jerome at that trade deadline in the short season. They would have had a much better chance, I think.
Yeah, I mean, definitely would have had a much better chance. They probably wouldn't have gotten Jágr.
Yeah, and Jágr wasn't bad in his 40s. For some reason, it wasn't the best fit with the Bruins, though. It was a much better fit with the Devils in Florida.
Yeah, definitely.
Before we get into hockey, I came across a list on Twitter. I know we like to talk a little football to start this show off every now and again. A lot of people are kind of angry with Matt Nagy, the head coach of the Chicago Bears, for basically saying that Andy Dalton is QB1 as of right now, and he doesn't really see Justin Fields playing at all to start the season. First of all, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't hate it, and I kind of agree. We had David Kaplan came on, and I asked him a question about Justin Fields, and I kind of agree with what he said. Kind of play it how you play, how like the Chiefs played Mahomes. Like let him sit, let him see the game at the NFL level from the backup role, and then when he's ready, or whether the situation is ready for him, then insert him. But I don't hate having Andy Dalton start week 1. We'll see how long it lasts. I'll give it till like week 5.
Yeah, I mean, like I think I've said it before, like there's the Patrick Mahomes thing, like they waited on him, look at him. And then there's Russell Wilson. He beat out Hasselbeck in camp, and look at him. They started him in week 1 that season, and he hasn't gone under 500 at any point in his career. He's one of the best quarterbacks of the era, maybe ever. Like we'll see how the second half of his career goes. So I think it could go either way, but this list, the winningest coach in the history of the Chicago Bears, if you had to guess, is
Mike Ditka.
Mike Ditka with a .631 win percentage. That leads all head coaches in the history of the franchise. Number 2, the guy we just mentioned, one Matt Nagy with a .583 win percentage. Lovie Smith just below him with .563. And those are the only 3 that are pathetically over 500 in the history of the Bears. It makes you laugh a little bit, but everyone questions Matt Nagy. And I'm not even saying I'm a Nagy guy. There have been times where he's a straight up clown, but over 500, one of the best in terms of winning in the history of the team.
Yeah, if I wouldn't have looked at that list, I would have guessed it was Lovie Smith, number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And it still could be that way. Like, that's a number that could lower.
Oh, for Nagy? Of course.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, it's not really surprising. You look at, like, Mike Ditka, he's one of the best coaches ever, but, like, and then Lovie Smith was great. I liked him a lot. But you look at, like, the Bears franchise, and, like, they never really had, like, they're not really known for having, like, that amazing guy. Like, they never had, like, a Tom Brady or, like, an Aaron Rodgers. Like, Jay Cutler is their best quarterback in franchise history, would you say?
Statistically.
Yeah, exactly.
People that would claim Sid Luckman as the best in franchise history, but, like, okay.
Yeah. You get what I mean? It seems like they never had, like, a number 1, like, the guy like that, you know?
No, there's never been a Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, you know, an MVP caliber like absolutely.
So it's kind of goes the same with coaches, but aside from Mike Ditka, obviously.
We'll see if Fields can keep Nagy and Brian Pace, for that matter, their jobs. We're hoping for it. And I'd like to keep things Chicago to start things off, so let's start in period number 1. First of all, I saw some things on Twitter over the last little while. Yesterday was the 6-year anniversary of the last time the Chicago Blackhawks won not only a playoff series, but the Stanley Cup. So I want to ask you, remembering the 2015 Stanley Cup, it was probably the most unlikely of the 3, I would say, because 2010 was a surprise a little bit. 2013, they were the best team in the league, and really only Anaheim was even close. And the Bruins, who they beat in the Stanley Cup final. But 2015 was like they were kind of depleted. They traded for some old guys at the deadline, and then Patrick Kane came back in the playoffs, and Duncan Keith played out of his mind. What are some of your thoughts and good moments from that 2015 Stanley Cup championship?
Yeah, the thing that sticks out is going into it, it's kind of odd. I did not plan this of me wearing this hat, but going into it, I definitely think the Hawks we're gonna see them lose a Stanley Cup. You know, we hadn't seen it in our time leading up to this. They won in 2010. They won it in 2013. It seemed like every time they made it there, had a good team to make a run, they'd get it done. And in 2015, I thought that was going to come to an end when they met up against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I was wrong. I was dead ass wrong. It seems like I'm wrong more than I'm right. And just in my brain, for them to go into it, in my brains, they were underdogs, and for them to just shut me up and do what they did, that's kind of like, that's the biggest thing that sticks out to me is that they were just able to get it done.
Absolutely. And then you see on the screen right here, you got Brandon Saad. He takes the puck over the blue line and he gets it up to Brad Richards. And then Brad Richards makes a no-look pass to Patrick Kane. And in my brain, that's the day Patrick Kane became a legend in Chicago. He was already a borderline Hall of Famer and one of the best players in the history of the team. But when he scored the insurance goal that put them ahead, it just felt like that's it. Patrick Kane, he had a really good playoff, but he kind of struggled a little bit in the Stanley Cup final because Victor Hedman was that good at containing him. And it took a brilliant no-look pass from Brad Richards to feed Kane off of a nice play by Brandon Saad. And that's the day Patrick Kane becomes a legend in my mind. And right before that clip, you saw Duncan Keith pretty much solidify his Conn Smythe trophy that he probably was going to win anyway. And it's like, oh, Keith has been so good in the playoffs. And then he scores what ended up being the Stanley Cup game-winning goal. So that game was just kind of like, a microcosm of the entire playoffs for the Hawks as a whole. And they started with Scott Darling in the playoffs that season. Corey Crawford struggled a little bit against Nashville. And then the one bad game Darling has, Crawford goes right back in, beats Nashville, and then sweeping the Wild, and then a really tough series with the Anaheim Ducks in the conference finals. I mean, it was just remarkable.
Yeah, you mentioned Duncan Keith. That was probably some of the best like playoff hockey we've ever seen from him. And he's a big part of that cup. And that's why he won the Conn Smythe. But in that game 6, I think there was no other goals from Tampa.
No, they won the game 2-0. Yeah.
Yeah. So a shutout in your clinching game. Crawford and Darling were phenomenal. A phenomenal duo for that team. So some great things to pull from that year.
And the thing not a lot of people realize is I almost said the White Sox because they just took a 2-0 lead on a Jose Abreu 2-run home run. The Blackhawks faced the Lightning, as you mentioned, and the Lightning, not a lot of people give the Hawks enough credit for this. They were the NHL's leading regular season team in 2014-15. And so the Hawks kind of shut them down. I mean, Victor Hedman did a fantastic job of shutting down Patrick Kane. People kind of got on Kane, I remember, a little bit during that stretch. It's like, well, that's the playoffs. Like, you're going to Patrick Kane doesn't step on the ice, especially in Tampa, and Victor Hedman doesn't hop right over the boards after that. And that was kind of his, like, a rise to be one of the premier defensemen in the league. That's when people started to take notice. And I just think the way Duncan Keith shut down, they were the triplets at the time. Now Nikita Kucherov plays with Steven Stamkos on Tampa's top line, and they run the power play. But back in the day, it was the triplets. Andre Palat and Tyler Johnson playing with Nikita Kucherov, and then Stamkos played with Killorn on the top line. It was as well balanced of a team as they have now. They kind of went in a little bit of a funk with some injuries in between losing the cup in 2015 and winning the cup in 2020. But, they drafted a guy like Braden Point in the 3rd round. That really helped get them that, like, number 3 punch. You can argue he's their number 1 punch now, but having him with Stamkos and Kucherov, it's a great team. So seeing the Hawks do what they did to them was just really, really sweet.
And didn't they have Jonathan Drouin at that time, who they eventually then traded for Sergachev?
Yes. So Jonathan Drouin went. That was a really good trade for both teams, I would say. Jonathan Drouin never really reached his full potential. I would say he's not like an 80-point guy or anything like that, but he's a good forward. Any team would want him on their second line. And Sergachev has just been a beast. He's
exactly what they needed. You need those guys to play under Victor Hedman. And then they went and got Ryan McDonough as well. So their D at that time was phenomenal. And they didn't have Ryan McDonough on that team though, did they?
No.
Yeah, that was after. But you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning now, and
they might have actually.
I don't remember when he was traded from New York.
He was traded for St. Louis, who went to the Stanley Cup final with the Rangers the year before.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm totally thinking Ryan McDonough was on that team. I would have to go back and look at the roster, but I'm pretty sure Ryan McDonough was on that team because he was traded for – or no, I'm thinking of Callahan. Ryan Callahan was traded for St. Louis. So maybe McDonough wasn't yet. McDonough was traded after. Yeah, I have Callahan and McDonough flipped because they were each of the Rangers captain. And they were both the Rangers captain traded to Tampa.
Yeah, so I have the roster right here. Andre Palat, we mentioned. Nemesnikov was on that team. We forgot about
Nemesnikov. He went to the Rangers in exchange for McDonough. 100%.
Okay, I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention or I don't remember Jonathan Marchessault ever playing on the Lightning.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Absolutely. And then he ended up in Florida. They let him go to Vegas so they would take Riley Smith. The trade trees in the NHL can get a little wild if you do some deep digging.
That's crazy that Marchessault was on the Lightning. I don't remember that at all. I don't know why. I remember Filppula. I said Drouin, Ryan Callahan, Brady
Filppula. What a player.
Matt Carl was on that team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good Tampa Bay Lightning team.
Absolutely. They were better on paper than the Hawks. The Hawks they had Kimmo Timonen playing lots of minutes at 40.
Yeah.
And they traded for Antoine Vermette. Remember him?
Mm-hmm. That was ended up being a great, him and Brad Richards were great guys for that team.
Absolutely. They signed Brad Richards in the offseason leading in, and it's like going into the season, you got two guys, Patrick Kane and Brad Richards, because you knew Richards was going to be Kane's centerman because Taves and Kane never play together. You're like, both of these guys have had 50 assist seasons. These two together can make sweet love, and they did. They were magnificent. Brad Richards, underrated pickup. Now, Quinville got the most out of Vermette. He scratched him. He wasn't afraid to scratch him against the Ducks, and the next game he comes out and scores the OT GWG. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
It was a really good run to the Cup.
I didn't know that was 6 years ago yesterday. I didn't know it shared an anniversary as the 2011 team because that was their anniversary as well.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, the Bruins, it was a little more celebrated yesterday, literally because it was 10 years.
It was a decade mark, yeah.
And I think the 2011 Bruins have a lot in common with the 2010 Hawks in terms of they like ended a very long drought. And, you know, the first is always a little more memorable in terms of like meaning for a city.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I enjoyed that 2015 run for the Hawks. I thought the Lightning was going to win as well because they were just so good in the regular season and dominated the scoring. And so
they got it done last year and they very well could get it done this year.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little later. I saw a tweet. Most shows just lead back to a tweet, it seems like, doesn't it? Twitter just runs our life. I saw a tweet from our friend, Barstool Chief. And we've met Chief a couple times. He's a pretty friendly dude. Trying to get him on this show has been annoying, but hopefully our friend White Sox Dave will help us out with that. But he had a tweet that went up a couple days ago about a conversation he had. And now Chief is kind of like us in terms of his content, and you know, he's much bigger than we are, but he definitely has some people in the know. He's got friends, former scouts, current scouts. So you never know who he's talking to in this situation. But based on a conversation, he doesn't believe that Alex Nylander or Nikita Zadorov will be back. And he also believes that Ian Mitchell and Dylan Strome could be gone, according to his tweet. I have my thoughts on each of those pairs, but I'd like to get yours first.
Yeah, the Zadorov thing, I really am not surprised. I don't think, you know, he's currently on a $3 million contract and he's restricted after this, but I think there's potential that I would not be surprised if they move him because I don't know. I don't think too highly of Zadorov. And I kind of even forgot about Alex Nylander. He's been hurt. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. So I don't know, like, you know, when he's going to, if he's 100% or what. I don't know. I haven't seen Alex Nylander in a minute. So I could see those guys moving for sure. So that wouldn't really surprise me at all. It's where you look at where he says could be gone, Ian Mitchell. And I know you've talked highly about him, and I'm curious to hear what you think, but I think there's plenty of room for him to develop into a very, very good defenseman. So there would have to be a pretty big return. That's like, you know, one of your top prospects sending away who's still on his entry-level deal. There'd have to be a pretty good return for Ian Mitchell to go.
Yeah, so for me, the two that he says like he thinks are going to be gone, Zadorov and Nylander, I'm out on both of them. Mm-hmm. I think trading Yogi Haru for Nylander was one of the 5 worst trades Stan Bowman has made. And the fact that it's only like the 4th or 5th worst trade says a lot because it's a garbage trade. Yogi Haru's not like a superstar defenseman game changer like we talk about with Victor Hedman and those cats. But I mean, he's a serviceable defenseman. We talked about Sergachev. Like, he kind of reminds me of a Sergachev where like he's just a depth, like good number 3 or 4 guy. Nylander, he's soft. I mean, he's not like his brother. I mean, I don't know if people in Toronto would call William Nylander soft, but he can score and he can make plays and make others around him better. Zadorov, I don't like him in the Hawks system. I think he's certainly not fit for like the type of attack that they have. And if he was on another team, we'll see what happens. If he played on a team like the Islanders who forced their players to be in proper position, you know, we would see what happens. But I would let both of them go. If some team wants to trade for them or give a pick, a 7th, a 6th, whatever, accept your loss on that. The thing about Zadorov, they lost 3 Brandon Saad trades. The 2 times they traded him away, they lost the trade. And the time they acquired him, they lost the trade. Artemi Panarin is one of the best players in the world. It's just horrible. And as far as the other 2, Mitchell and Strome, I definitely think if they trade those guys, there's a chance that they both bring back something special. So can it be used for like a big package to acquire a Seth Jones? I know Jack Eichel came into the news today with a report that the trade talks are really heating up for him. I'd like to hear your thoughts on what could return if a Mitchell or a Strome were traded away, because I truly believe something good would be coming back, especially in the case of Ian Mitchell. I'm very in on him. I'd like to know what you think.
Yeah. Is Seth Jones, how is he hitting this market? Is he a free agent? Are they planning on trading him?
He's got 1 year left. Next season is his last year, and then he's a UFA. So the challenge would be acquiring him and then getting him to sign a long-term deal.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously Jack Eichel is already on a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think Jack Eichel, you have to take on a big cap, but you're getting an elite player in not even in his prime yet, but has had injury.
I think Jack Eichel is off the board for Chicago. Just due to the money they have invested in Taves and Kane, because we're assuming Taves will be back. That's $21 million right there. And if you want to add another $10 million guy, you're gonna look into problems. But Seth Jones, I think based off of this tweet from Chief, it kind of points in that direction. You're getting rid of, if they get rid of Zadorov and a prospect in Ian Mitchell, then that could be the return that a team like Columbus is looking for. Because, are they ready to win the cup right now? I don't think so. I think they're going to have to kind of look in the mirror and see where they're at. And a young guy like Ian Mitchell could help them. And then the Hawks are probably planning, if they were able to get Seth Jones, turn him into the face of the defense.
Yeah, that makes sense. But if they figure out ways to get rid of Seabrook's contract or Andrew Shaw's contract, don't you think they could fit in an Eichel if they really want to try and maximize 2 or 3 more years of Taves and Kane?
Yeah, they can, but I just, it's very hard around that trade deadline time to build something when, over $30 million is invested in 3 guys. It's very difficult, especially if we don't know how Taves is going to play. That's $10 million on a guy who's probably going to give you 50 something points, 60 points.
Yeah. Now let's pretend they do decide to do it and they want Eichel and they're okay with spending that money. Do you think a guy like Kirby Dach comes into play? Because you would think Buffalo's looking for a return similar to, not the same potential, because Eichel's going to be the best player in the deal pretty much for whoever he's traded for. But I mean, if you get Dach and Mitchell and let's say Strome and a first, that's a hefty price to pay, especially for a team that is the worst in their division by far. I'm talking about the standard Central Division, not the fake. What was it called this year? The Central Division again, but it had Detroit and Columbus in it, who are worse, but they'll go back to their normal divisions, and the Hawks will be back to being the worst team again. Would you include someone like Dach?
If you're making a trade with Buffalo, I think you would have to. There's no way Buffalo, they're stupid, but they're not give away a top center who's really good and elite right now and not get a player who they're hoping is going to be elite in the future. Even though there's plenty of time with Jack Eichel. I personally believe Jack Eichel's maybe not going to get traded. It all depends. I think them winning the draft lottery helps a lot. We'll see where they go with there. There's definitely a play to be made if you're the Buffalo Sabres. And I just think Jack Eichel's such a skilled and talented generational player that moving a guy like that is not the right move. But if what you're asking about from the Hawks' point of view, yes, if you can get Jack Eichel, go ahead, send away Kirby Dach.
I'm with you. I would do it just because I know they're too dumb to know that a rebuild is looming, and they're going to try and get the most out of Taves and Kane. So we might as well like be entertained. If Jack Eichel was running a power play, like let me be very, very clear. If Patrick Kane and Jack Eichel are on the same power play, that's incredible.
Yeah.
He would automatically be the best center on the team. He's better than Taves at this point in his career. I'm not going to say he's better than Kane yet, but I certainly think the potential to like take over as better than Kane is possible over the next 2 or 3 years. He's got to stay healthy. I'd like to see him fix whatever was ailing him in 2021. But I mean, sky's the limit for that kid. The fact that he went number 2 in that draft only to McDavid.
Yeah, and for those who don't know how good Eichel is, he is, and it's not like you're getting a guy who's in his prime right now. He is young still. He's got a bright future ahead of him. If the Hawks were able to land Jack Eichel, that could change the franchise for the better.
Whoever acquires him.
Exactly. That could change that team's franchise like for the better for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean,
and the Hawks are definitely like they just had that wave of the past decade having 3 cups, and they're on the downhill slope of that. Getting Jack Eichel can totally restart and make it a bright, bright future.
If they handle the rest of their team the right way, I think it could help. I also think it could be like a move you make now for the future, if that makes sense, because Taves and Kane only have 2 years left on their deal. So if you grind through 2 more years with those two making what they make, I think it's possible that you get through it. And then once those contracts are over, you can re-sign Kane for less than $10 million. You let Taves walk, or whatever you do, you can build around a Jack Eichel. And, if I don't know if Kirby Dach would go, but you have DeBrincat and, other young guys that are going to be coming through. I really like this Reichel kid who they just signed. Mm-hmm. We talked about him when we talked about the World Championships, but they inked him to an entry-level deal now. So, I mean, when you watch him play, you could see that he could, like, skate through the zone, and it's brilliant. His shot is awesome. I wish he would shoot more. I don't think he shoots enough. He always has had, like, a pass-first mentality, even though he has a 40-goal scorer ability to, like, put the puck in the net.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Eichel as good as anyone, being a fan of a team in the Atlantic Division. And when he played at BU, there were lots of games he played at the TD Garden in the Bean Pot. So, I mean,
yeah, he played at BC. Are you sure?
Yeah.
How sure?
I'm almost positive.
I don't know. We'll have to look that up. Pretty sure he played at BC.
He played for BU.
I don't know. But yeah, Gonzo says Doc isn't in his prime either, and we still haven't seen his potential yet. I'm gonna pretty much, and I know I sound like a clown every time I make a prediction, but I'm pretty confident in saying that Jack Eichel, his prime, is going to be far and away better than Kirby Dach's. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
and that's not a slight to Kirby Dach, but Jack Eichel is a generational player.
My ceiling for Eichel was always, or not Jack Eichel. It was always for Kirby Dach, Getzlaf. I love the way Getzlaf plays, but I mean, Jack Eichel in his prime is probably better than Getzlaf in his prime.
Yeah, he went to Boston University. Why did I think Boston?
Oh, I know he went to BU.
Why did I think Boston College? Who went to Boston College?
Corey Schneider. I don't know where that came from. He was at BU. He won the Hobie Baker as the best player in college hockey. So, I mean, if whatever team acquires him is going to feel the positivity from that acquisition for a very long time.
Yeah.
So that's it for our Hawks talk this week. We got plenty of other stuff to go over in terms of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the draft, all that kind of stuff. And for that, we'd like to send it over to period number 2. And in the second period, we want to welcome on a very special guest. Someone who has helped me through pretty much all of my blogging I started with, and it became what it is today, and that is Nick Villano of the Pucks and Pitchforks blog and a writer for Fansided.com. Nick, how are we doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm in the guest chair. I'm not used to this. I don't know how this is gonna go. So, I literally walked in the door 3 minutes ago. Threw some water on the head to tame down this quarantine mane I got going on.
Yeah, you got a mop going on there. Holy crap!
Look at that.
That's the quarantine Nick Villano hair right there.
I like it.
You don't understand. I'm usually down to a 2. I usually go to the bar and give me a 2. And he's like, a 2? And then now I'm like, oh, look at this. I got that flow going.
That's crazy. I only know what it's like to have really short hair. So, I wore the devil's hat on this show with this, just knowing you were coming on. So, and Joey and Nick have never even met before. For those who don't know, I've known Nick for a very long time now. We're going on 3 years working together. And, Joey and Nick, welcome to meeting.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. I follow you on Twitter. You're Pucks and Pitchforks, right?
Yeah. That's me. So I'm sorry if I've offended you.
Those there's been we had 8 grueling, Bruins Devils games this year.
Joey don't get mad at that kind of stuff because he just wins all the time and we stink, and that's the way it's been.
I think the Devils actually won the season series, did they not?
I know they took care of the Bruins pretty good early on, and that's when we were thinking, oh, the Devils might be turning the corner here, and Jack Hughes, all this muscle that he's put on and all that kind of stuff. So Nick,
then he got a virus that took away all his muscle. So that was
exactly. He lost all that weight he put on. So I want to know, right off the bat, what's your takeaway from the Devils in the 2021 season?
So it doesn't make any sense. I really, really should hate this team, but I don't. I did the grades at the end of the season, and it was hard to give bad grades. Who do I give bad grades to? Even the ones who maybe didn't do great analytically had such better seasons than expectations, like a Pavel Zacha or Nathan Bastian, things like that. And it's how do I give that? How do I give that player? How do I give the guy who led the team in goals after people thought he was a shoo-in to be an expansion draft guy? How do I give that guy a bad grade? So, and I truly think that from what I saw out of Miles Wood, usurps the analytics. He's clearly has a positive impact on the team. So, looking at the team, their biggest problem is that their goalie was not elite, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And 2, their defense still had major issues, but ironically, a lot of them were hidden at 5-on-5 because of the Lindy Ruff system. The Lindy Ruff system is so fast for defensemen that it was hard to tell that PK Subban wasn't the number 1, or that Damon Severson kind of fell off the map when I don't know if it was injury related or the outbreak or whatever caused him to fall off the map. But it was hard to tell, unlike in the John Hines system, where it's very clear when a defenseman's overmatched. This one didn't show it. There was the only time it was really, really, really a problem was on that penalty kill.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, guys falling off the map. They started off really good. And guys like Mackenzie Blackwood being up there amongst the league leaders and goalies, and Jack Hughes was flirting with the scoring lead even there for a couple weeks. And they all got sick. And when they returned, it just was not the same. So
I'm talking to the Chicago side of the podcast, and it's kind of a similar situation, right? Kevin Lankinen was the Calder winner. Him and Kaprizov were one, two most of the season, and then Lankinen wasn't a star anymore, and Chicago was not really in the race anymore. The Devils have had more of a precipitous fall because they had that crazy losing streak in the middle of the season, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that Mackenzie Blackwood he wasn't right. And I think that the Devils knew that was they didn't think he was going to get COVID, but they knew that inconsistency was a possibility, which is why they signed Corey Crawford. And then Corey Crawford retired. Now you're stuck with Scott Wedgwood, Aaron Dell, Eric Comrie. The guys who haven't been up 10, like Joe Sen and Evan Cormier, weren't good enough to get up. So it all came down to the goalie, which it's come down to for the past 5 seasons. Since Corey Schneider stopped being elite, it became the biggest problem in the Devils. Now, the 1 year that the goaltending was good when Keith Kincaid stood on his head, they made the playoffs. But Keith Kincaid is not that goalie.
Yeah.
Corey Schneider, he hurt his groin or he hurt his hip.
Yeah, he was never
multiple groin injuries, multiple other hip injuries, lots of lower body injuries. He's different now.
Yeah,
and then you get into this year, you think, okay, cool. Like you got Blackwood, he'll play 80% of the games, but then he gets a virus that impacts your lung capacity and among other things, and blood flow and heart rhythm, and so it was just a mass unsuccess. Everything went wrong.
Yep.
And unlike other teams that are better, the Devils couldn't really handle anything going wrong. But to have as much go wrong as it did, it usurped all the good things. It usurped Jack Hughes taking a step in the right direction. It usurped Igor Sharangovich going from pretty much to be cool if he'd make the NHL type player to he's a star. Yeah, it usurped all that because there's too many other things went wrong.
Yeah, Nick, I was going to ask you about the goaltending situation. Do you think Mackenzie Blackwood is like their number one guy going forward, or is that a position that they're going to look to probably add something for their future?
I think they're going to just make a similar move. Whether that's Halak, your Boston guy, Thomas Greiss, I think, is a free agent. Maybe they go a little bit higher for like a Peter Mrazek. One guy I'm kind of curious about is Ben Bishop in Dallas. He's injured a lot, but if you bring down his load to like 35 games a year in a normal 82-game season, I think he can still be an elite production type guy, and Dallas doesn't want to pay him. So, and I don't think Seattle's going to take him in the expansion draft. And they got Hudobin and Ettinger. I'm probably saying his name wrong, but they have two. Yeah, they have two legit NHL goalies, so they don't need Bishop. I think that they can't go in with Wedgwood and Blackwood. They cannot do that. That's absolutely out of the question. I think Wedgwood could be on the team, because you do have to sign a goalie to expose to the expansion draft. So I think they might sign him, have him as like a third option to Binghamton, kind of an emergency option for New Jersey, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But I think that you have to get like a legit backup or even like a 1B like they got with Crawford. But I still think that Blackwood is fine. I think you got to throw the season out. The season was always like a crapshoot, and maybe they were going to figure it out. Maybe they weren't, especially these young teams. You saw with a lot of the young teams that like when it went wrong, it went really wrong. With Buffalo, it went really wrong. With Chicago, it went really wrong. With a couple other teams, once it went wrong, it was impossible to bring it back to a normalcy. And even these veteran coaches like Lindy Ruff, it's just it's too much to overcome in a season where you're playing every other game.
I'm totally with you. I'm actually all in on Blackwood. I think the season before things got weird for the Devils, he was awesome, and the year before he was awesome, and they're not that good defensively. So, I kind of think the sky's the limit for the guy if they can keep him healthy and put a somewhat serviceable team in front of him. Now, I want to know what your reaction was. I know what your reaction was. I want you to tell the fans what your reaction was when they came up on the draft lottery at pick number 4.
I was happy. Listen, I didn't want to have to make the number 1 overall pick decision.
It's a tough pick this year.
It's not even that. It's just a uniquely bad situation for the Devils because then you're negotiating with Jack Hughes next year.
Yeah,
and the cap's still going to be flat next year. And the Devils are apparently looking into some pretty big contracts this year, so it looks like they might spend. Who knows if they get Dougie Hamilton? I don't think they will, but I mean, their name's out there. Their name has been loosely tied to by pretty legit analysts.
They're going to make a call.
Yeah, I mean, you got to make a call at least. And if you have the number 1 overall pick and you think Owen Power's the best player, but you got your star player saying, draft my brother, who's probably Right now, he's 2 steps below Owen Power, but his upside's higher than Owen Power's.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to kind of like make that decision. Like, I have this high floor guy who can get to here, or I have this low floor guy who can get to here.
Mm-hmm.
You have to like make that decision. But the problem is that neither of them are like Cale Makar. Neither of them are Miro Heiskanen. I don't even think neither of them are even like Jamie Drysdale. You know what I mean? I think there's players that can eventually be better than Jamie Drysdale or Jake Sanderson, or, you know, depending on development and luck and injury and health and a lot of different things. But I don't see a guy coming in second year and being a Norris nominee. I don't see a guy coming in second year and being a top line guy like even Ty Smith. You know, I see a notch below that and a longer development. So the Devils have to get to make that decision at 4. They get to say, okay, you know, if Luke Hughes falls there, I think he's probably the 4th guy in this draft. So great. We get the 4th guy. We make our guy happy. We get to get this great marketing campaign with the Hughes brothers. But I number one was just I think Owen Power is going to be really, really good. And I think he's probably what this team needs. But they weren't going to make that decision. So I think that it's good that you didn't get number 1, because the decision kind of gets made for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, when you're picking at 4, you're going to get one of there's probably a big 5 or big 6 in this draft that could go in pretty much any order. I know Owen Power will probably be pretty near the top. But, I mean, if Luke is gone, then you could say to Jack, well, you know, we were going to take him, but Seattle took him or Anaheim took him. I don't think Buffalo is going to take him, but it's going to be interesting to see. I could tell, Joe, that you had a question here.
Yeah, I want to ask about PK. He got hurt toward the end of the year, and I want your take on what you think about PK Subban the remaining 2 years. Is he just going to finish those 2 years with the Devils, or what's happening with him?
Well, he's got 1 year left. This was his second.
Okay, yeah. So 1 year next year
after this,
and that'll free up $9 million, correct?
He's either going to get taken by Seattle or finish up with the Devils.
Yeah,
they're not going to buy him out. There's no reason to.
Yeah.
Devils, I think, I had to check some of the other teams, but they got $34 million in cap space right now.
Yeah, they lead the league.
If Seattle takes PK Subban, they're $18 million away from the cap floor. So they have to spend $18 million, or they get like I think they're pretty severe punishments if you don't hit the cap floor.
Yeah, no, there is for sure.
So then you're just throwing money at people. I think that they want to keep Subban. They might protect Subban. I don't know.
I was going to say they might. I mean, who else is protecting over him
this year?
Who are you protecting over him? Because you don't have to protect Ty Smith.
No,
and
protecting Severson and Siegenthaler.
Yeah, for 1,000%. They might have traded for Siegenthaler so they can protect him.
I think. Yeah, I mean, it was a 3rd round pick. It wasn't a big price. So
no.
When it comes to PK, I like PK. I like having him on this team. I don't like paying him $9 million, but with us not being close to the cap ceiling, it's literally just money out of Josh Harris's pocket that I do not care about.
Yeah.
So he can make $100 million this year. I don't care. As long as it doesn't get us to the cap ceiling. I understand that we get us to the cap ceiling. I was being facetious. But I'll pay him whatever. It doesn't matter. He's a great marketing tool. He's wonderful with the fans when they're allowed to be. He's so great in the community. He puts so much money into the community. He puts his heart and soul. He visits every hospital that asks him to come. He tries to mend the gap between lesser privileged communities and the police force, which is something that a lot of people don't talk about. I think that that's not what the narrative is looking for players like him to do, but he's doing it. And I think that he really cares about the communities he's in. And he seems to like New Jersey. Like, that was the thing about Hall. When Taylor Hall was at his peak, the reason we loved him is because it seemed like he loved playing for New Jersey. He seemed to love living here. He seemed to love being here. And then the seasons fell apart on the ice, and I think that made work miserable for him. So it obviously changed how things worked for him. But the reason why Devils fans fall in love with players is because players fall in love with us. And we're a very vain community. If you know New Jersey at all, we really like when people like us. So and PK seems to have turned around a lot of the fan base. They're not asking him to do too much. Sure, he was bad on the penalty kill, but like this penalty kill is one of the worst of all time. So like, definitely wasn't just his fault. He probably shouldn't be on the penalty kill anymore. But the Devils don't have anybody else. So when you're talking about Will Butcher is probably a good option for the penalty kill, then you don't have any good options for the penalty kill. So I think that I would re-sign PK, give him 2 more years at like something more, like a $3 to $4 million contract. Sure, yeah. The problem is, and this kind of goes along with the Rasmus Ristolainen rumors that the Devils are interested in him, is it feels like you're getting the same player over and over again. Damon Severson and PK Subban have very similar flaws and very similar strengths. And if you bring in Rasmus Ristolainen, it's the same guy.
Yeah.
31-year-old PK Subban, which can score on the power play, has a pretty good shot. PK obviously has an elite shot, but he doesn't always use it correctly. Ristolainen can get a lot of assists. PK can get a lot of assists. Damon can get a lot of assists.
Yep.
And none of them are number one, the first-line defenseman. None of them. So if you get Ristolainen, you're in the same boat, and you're dealing with the same guy. And, it's these kinds of decisions where it's like, if I do keep Subban and I re-sign him, then you're sitting with Severson and Subban, and you're kind of mimicking. But I think that maybe later in his career, he can be a guy that's like sitting with Kevin Ball, playing 15 minutes a night, getting power play time. So there's definitely a role for PK. That being said, as I look hard at this roster, and I try to think of like who Seattle would take, I don't see why they wouldn't take PK if he's available.
They're going to be trying to reach a floor too.
I think they could reach the floor easy. I don't think it's even about that, because we thought Vegas was going to do that. We thought Vegas was just going to take the expensive guys so they could reach the floor, and they didn't do it. It was smart. I think Seattle's going to follow that philosophy, but PK is actually a legitimate player and somebody who's really into being the centerpiece. And I think that's why he likes playing for the Devils now. And I think that's why he would like playing in Seattle. So I think he could re-sign there. And, then the Devils are in a weird position. They kind of have an open book, but we've seen teams spend ridiculously in the offseason, and it doesn't always look great.
So if New Jersey protects PK, you're saying they also would protect, you said, Siegenthaler and Severson?
Yeah.
Does that leave like Will Butcher open for Seattle to take for you guys?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to protect Will Butcher. I think Will Butcher's...
Are you guys kind of out on him?
Yeah, for the most part.
The problem with Will Butcher played pretty well down the stretch, but he sat in the owner's box for the first 45 games.
He couldn't get in the lineup if he offered the coach one. Yeah.
He's 20. I think he's
he came in and had a couple points in his first game or something, like first couple games.
Yeah, he was good. But he's also Will Butcher, and his skating needs work, and he's been in the NHL for 4 seasons, so I don't know how much better it's going to get. His shot is good, but he's small. There's a limitation to what you're going to get out of Will Butcher. I think he's good on a team that could put him on a third line, put him on a power play, and let him do his thing. The problem is the Devils need more out of their defensemen, A, in their Lindy Ruff system, and B, as it's currently constructed.
Absolutely. Now, let's say the top 3 picks in the draft are, in fact, Owen Power, I'll say Matt Beniers, and William Eklund. You're taking Luke Hughes at 4?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm with you on that just because, like you said, if you have both Hughes on the same team, it's going to make Jack happy. He'll want to sign a long-term deal, I would assume. And I also think with this draft, there's the potential for these guys to exceed expectation. So Ty Smith was the 17th overall pick. Who would have thought that at that pick he would end up doing what he did in his rookie season. Now, they actually kind of waited a long time to bring him into the lineup after sending him down. We thought he was going to make the team. Then it happened again last year, and then this year he finally makes it. So the ceiling for Luke Hughes can be higher than people think if put in position to succeed, don't you?
Well, are you talking overall or like next season?
Overall, he's going to play at Michigan next season, I would think.
He's probably going to play Michigan. I think he's playing Michigan 2 seasons.
Yeah.
If I would predict, I don't think he's going to make a jump. I think that Michigan team is building something that the players are going to like.
Yeah, and Owen Power already kind of said he's going back. He didn't confirm it, but he said he's leaning that way, and it could be a way to get Buffalo not to draft him. Some people were cracking that joke, but I mean, when you're a prospect, are you really trying to convince an NHL team not to draft you? I don't know, but I mean, it's going to be a good Michigan squad.
Yeah, I mean, I bet you he'd like to go to Seattle, but if he doesn't go to Seattle, he's going to Anaheim, and is that even how much better is Anaheim than Buffalo? But that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I mean, Luke Hughes, in my opinion, Luke Hughes has the highest ceiling of these 4 defensemen. When you talk about Edmonton, Brant Clark, Owen Power, and Hughes, I think he has the highest ceiling. I think he could be a superstar. I really do. But I don't see him winning Norris's anytime soon. I don't see any of these guys doing that. So that's why I was okay with the 4th overall pick, because the ceiling you're looking at this year is not the ceiling you've seen from the past, since what was Yakupov's draft, 2013 or something like that?
Yeah, 2013 was McKinnon. 2012 was Yakupov.
Okay. So since 2012, you haven't seen a draft with this much flux and just a lack of talent. And then you add to that the lack of scouting that teams have been able to do. And when the decision's easy, like the decision for Luke Hughes at 4 is easy. Don't overthink the easy thing. I think Dylan Guenther is a really good player, and he's probably going to be there at 4. And the Devils could use a winger, but not as bad as they can use a number 1 defenseman. And, Hughes is left-handed. Brant Clark is the right-handed guy in this draft. And a lot of people like him. His skating is bad. Just flat out, it's bad. But you can fix that with a skating coach.
Sure.
And so if you could fix his fatal flaw, and the Devils like that, and the Devils also have his brother, Graham Clark.
So many connections with the Devils and 3 of the top 5 picks.
Yeah. And it would just be funny if Owen Power fell to them. They end up taking the guy who has no connection at all to them.
Yeah.
But there's 3 left-handed guys, and then there's Brant Clark on the right side. The Devils have Subban and Severson. They might trade Severson because his value is pretty high this offseason. I'm seeing a lot of people tie Severson to just their fake trades.
Maple Leaf Twitter specifically.
Yeah. I mean, the Maple Leafs have always loved Severson.
Which is crazy because our fan base hates him as a whole, I would say. Based on reading comments on my tweets and my articles, it seems like he's definitely the scapegoat of the Devils. Now, guys like us probably aren't as out on him as the average fan, but I mean, Leafs Twitter, for some reason, is just obsessed with this guy, and they want him on their team. Yeah,
I mean, well, here's the thing, is that Severson's a really good player. Severson was a top 15 defenseman for the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
15. He carried Ty Smith into the Calder race.
Yeah.
He forced him in it. And then Ty Smith, because Ty Smith was making a lot of mistakes in the first couple of weeks just because it's his play style and he was getting used to the NHL game. And Severson was making up for those mistakes in droves. I don't know what happened because Severson was straight up a liability over the last 6 weeks of the season. I did not like when he was on the ice. Because often when he was on the ice, the other team was getting a chance. Now, high danger chance at that. So I did not like when he was on the ice. His playing the power play was putrid in the last 6 weeks of the season. I don't know why Mark Recchi or Lindy Ruff, whoever was making the decision, didn't yank him off for Will Butcher or just put a forward there. You didn't need Severson in that role. You force-fed a defenseman onto a power play that didn't need him. Yeah. You could have put Mikhail Maltsev to kind of put like an interesting spin or somebody, anybody. I wouldn't even mind like Nate Bastian and like a Brian Boyle type role or something. But they kept Severson up there when he wasn't playing well. And that's what the Devils have done for his entire career. When a role's not fitting him, They continue to play him in that role. When a role fits him, something changes. And usually it's like an injury and he has to take on a bigger role, or the Devils upgrade him and they don't have anybody else for that first line. It's you know who it is? He reminds me of exactly what Ben Lovejoy was for this team. Ben Lovejoy's not a number one defenseman. They put him there and he sucked. Yep. And they're like, you're actually a number 3. They put him on the third line. They let him play penalty kill, and the Devils, they finally got their money's worth out of Ben Lovejoy.
He was solid there at the end.
Yeah, and Severson will be a solid top 40 defenseman if you put him in the right role. Last year, he was a top 15 in the beginning of the season, and then like outside the top 100 at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that, and then you have, I mean, look at their defense. You traded away Kuokkanen. You lost Vatanen for nothing. You just didn't have a lot of pieces. And you have to hope Kevin Ball plays well, which he did. You have to hope Siegenthaler plays well, which then he got sick. Subban got sick. Colton White wasn't ready. Josh Jacobs didn't show the flashes that he did in the training camp. The defense just never felt right. And then you can't, because of the constant in and out, injury, sickness, taxi squad, AHL, NHL, all these different changes, you got no chemistry.
They were never able to gel.
So there was the defense just never had a chance.
Yep, too much Matt Tennyson too.
Oh, well, I tend to forget that one.
Yeah. Joe, you got anything?
Yeah, I got to ask, are you rooting for the Islanders the rest of the way? Like,
why would I root for the team that I have their first round pick?
I don't know. You Palmieri.
What's the difference between 28 and 31 at this point?
Yeah, I'm just
probably tell you. I was looking at his name's escaping me, but he did this massive article on the difference in picks. And it's funny how the draft goes and how teams draft. Teams who draft as teams who just made the playoffs, like 19, 20, 21, draft much, much worse as like 24, 25, 26 when it comes to playing 100 games in the NHL. So it's kind of funny that way. And then the ones at the very end of the first round, like 30 and 31, are terrible. But like 27, 28, 29 are like a notch above them because
that is interesting.
30, 31. I mean, you think about it. Like, think about the decision the Devils made last year with Shakir Mukhamadullin. They took Shakir Mukhamadullin because they did not have a second-round pick. They fell in love with the player, and they didn't have the pick to get him. So they way overdrafted him.
Yep.
Whether that works out or not, I don't know. It doesn't look great.
Doesn't look great at all.
My top 25 prospects is going to come out by the end of the month, and he's not where a first-round pick should be. He's not where the other first-round picks are, I'll tell you that much.
No, you hope they make up for it with the Dawson Mercer pick, but
I mean, the Mercer pick was obvious, though.
Yeah,
it was so obvious. The right pick. And like everybody's mad because the Rangers took Braden Schneider. Braden Schneider looks good this year, but Dawson Mercer looks better, and the Rangers would be in much better shape. They would trade Brandon Schneider and something else for Dawson Mercer right now because Dawson Mercer fills a need for them, and Brandon Schneider is a luxury. But back to the original point is that I'm not rooting for the Islanders because I want that pick to be as high as possible. Also, I live in Tampa, and I cover, I vaguely cover things in Tampa. So if Tampa wins, I get to cover more things. So that's nice. But I was never rooting for the Islanders. I was always rooting for them to lose. I wanted them to lose in the first round. I wanted them to lose in the second round. I wanted them to lose in the third round. If they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, I want the one extra pick. I want to pick 30 instead of 31. I will root against the Islanders as long as we have their pick. I don't hate the Islanders. I know a lot of Devils fans like fake hate the Islanders because they're in our division.
I know.
When we were good, they were terrible. And now they're good and we're terrible. Like, we've never had a reason to hate them. So it's just never worked out for a rivalry. And I just have no ill feelings. I like Lou. He did so much good for us. Like, how could you hate Lou Lamoriello? I like Palmieri and Zajac and Andy Green and Corey Schneider. I like all those guys. If they win, like, retroactively, I'll be like, that's good for them. But I'm not going to root for it.
Gotcha. That's what I was wondering, if you guys were rooting for, like, your old players.
I do like Palmieri and Zajac specifically. They were great Devils. They're probably 2 of the 3 best Devils in the last 5 years, which is kind of sad. But as far as the Islanders as a team, with excluding the stuff with the pick, I don't care. They don't bother me. I kind of hate them when they play them, just because they have some pretty obnoxious fans. But in terms of the overall, I hate the Flyers more. I don't like the Rangers at all, obviously. But I mean, I think most Devils fans, if we did a poll on pucksandpitchforks.com, I bet if you put the Rangers, the Islanders, the Flyers, and the Hurricanes in a poll, the Islanders would finish last in terms of most hated.
Yeah, they hate the Hurricanes. Really, they really hate the Hurricanes.
I don't. I mean, I'm here in Illinois. I don't see things firsthand with other Devils fans. You know, I'm surrounded by Blackhawks fans and Joey. I probably root for the Blackhawks the same way you root for the Lightning, just because like it makes things a little more interesting sometimes.
Yeah.
But, you know, the Devils are my favorite team, and seeing the disdain for the Hurricanes online, I'm like, oh, I don't feel that. But I'm also, you know, I'm not around physically. I'm only the online presence.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I lived in New Jersey for most of my life, for anybody who's curious. So I do have that surrounding feeling. I was in New Jersey for Game 7 of whatever year that was, that the Hurricanes scored 2 goals in the last minute 27 of regulation to end it. And I think that's where a lot of the hatred comes from. They've had our number in a lot of seasons where they shouldn't have. It's just a weird thing. You know, it's one of those weird rivalries, but it's the same way people feel the same way about the Kings. And it's just when you lose to a team, people feel that way about the Avalanche. And the Devils haven't played them in a meaningful series in 20 years. It's 20 years now since the Devils played them in the Cup.
Mm-hmm.
So
the Kings stuff, I didn't like the Kings for a while there. Joey buys a Stanley Cup hat for every winner, no matter who wins. So he's got like, what do you have, like 9 or 10 now? I didn't want you to buy the Kings one. But, you know, that kind of melted since then. The Avalanche thing, there's the Marty Brodeur, Patrick Waugh stuff, I think, tied into it, in addition to the Cup stuff. So I think that kind of influences a little bit.
I also think it's the fact that they had it in their hands. Like, they won Game 5, so they were up 3-2. They're going home for Game 6, and they just put up a stinker. And then Game 7, they just never were really that – like, they weren't really in it. You know, Colorado just really – they just had it. There was just something behind it. It's almost like the Rangers in '94. I know Game 7 went to overtime, but there was just something about them that they had that extra something that the Devils just couldn't match. So I think that's what happened in 2001.
I think there's the Raymond Bourque factor too. It's one of the most famous Stanley Cup victories in the history of the sport, just because Joe Sakic took the cup and didn't even lift it. He just handed it right off to Raymond Bourque, and people remember that for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's the funny thing. Like, I remember there was this big controversy after the 2012 finals because Patrick Elias took the puck. And he took the puck. They thought it was like a slap in the face. But he took the puck because he thought it might be Brodeur's last game. Like, they never knew when Brodeur was going to retire. So he just took the puck, and he was like, all right. He thought Brodeur's last game was more important than the Kings' first Stanley Cup final win. We'll let you be the judge. The Kings end up getting the puck back. I don't think people think there's malice and everything. People are using lines.
I don't think, like, I can't even imagine Patrick Elias saying a swear word, let alone like doing something malicious like that. I mean, I know Joey's a big Elias guy. It was his favorite Devil for a long time.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that he took the puck. That's actually a pretty cool story.
I've heard that story before. It's pretty crazy. Well, Nick, we thank you so much for coming on and talking a little bit of Devils and NHL Draft with us. Is there anything you want to plug going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of stuff happening. I'm going to, pucksandpitchforks.com. We got a bunch of awesome articles that are, doing really well. I got one where I made some trades between the Avalanche and the Devils. You wrote one with the trades between the Maple Leafs and the Devils. Those are both
got roasted.
Yeah,
people asking me.
Roasting, your bank account is roasting because you paid $120. I don't mean to throw your stuff out there, but
off of an article that took an hour, if that.
Yeah, come on, one article. People are going to roast you, but I mean, we talk about it. We worked the trades where I think that they were in the realm of possibility, and people are always going to roast you. One of my trades involved Ryan Graves, and people are up in arms about Ryan Graves. People just want to be up in arms. It's fine. It makes us money. It is what it is. But go to pucksandpitchforks.com. I got a big slider going on puckpros, puckpros.com, PUCKPROSE. 30 greatest series winning goals in NHL history. That one's coming up. There's a video for each one, so you can kind of go through NHL history and kind of see some great goals. Some from like the 30s and the 50s, and then a bunch from like recently. So there's a lot going on. And we got the Let's Go Devils podcast. That's coming on every Wednesday at 8:30. We got a bunch of cool guests coming up over the next couple of weeks. So I'm excited about that. Draft talk, free agency talk, trade talk, a little bit of everything. It's similar to you guys, but yeah, lots going on. Just check it all out. Oh, and at Pitchfork Puck on Twitter. You got to come hit the Twitter account, hit the follow button. Make sure you do that because I will give you entertainment. I will at least give you that.
That's what it's all about. So, we want to have you on our baseball podcast coming up in a couple weeks. So we'll try and let the New York Yankees get a little hot before we have you come back on so you don't just swear the whole time. Maybe we'll do I know this is our first, I haven't even brought it up to you yet, but I was thinking about the Field of Dreams game, having Nick come on because the Field of Dreams game is a Thursday and our baseball show is a Thursday. So I think the White Sox Yankees themed show is in order for that day. So we'll be in touch on that. And I just want to thank you again for coming on. It meant a lot, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
For that, we will head it on to period number 3. And thank you once again to Nick Villano, the site expert, technically my boss at Pucks and Pitchforks. He's helped me a lot through the years, so it's always good to talk to him and get the lowdown on what he thinks going on with the Devils. What'd you think? You a big Devils guy now? You a big Devils guy now?
Yeah, right. I was high on the Devils going into last year, I remember. Not
when they were the off-season champs?
Yeah, like I think I had them, making the playoffs, but you
don't think they're going to be good next year, do you?
No.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think Nico and Jack will keep them in as a bubble team, and then they'll ultimately fail. I believe in Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes more than I believe in them from the bottom of my heart that they will be a 1-2 punch. So,
yeah. What interested me was his slideshow. He said he was coming up with the 30 series clinching goals.
Yeah, so that's on puckpros.com. So, Fansided, it's a very special website. Like, I love it. I love everything about that place. They have a website for each individual team, right? Mm-hmm. And then they also have a site for the sport as a whole. So for MLB, it's called Call to the Pen. For football, I forget what the football one is called. The hockey one is called Puck Pros. And then, of course, they have like the locals, which is like each city has a site. So like they literally have everything. And then Nick does work with the Puck Pros, so all NHL. And we have a bit of breaking news popping up on the bottom of the screen. Chicago Bears sign rookie offensive line Tevin Jenkins to his rookie deal. That excites the crap out of me because I don't know what his reps are going to be in this season, but they're going to be looking at him to be a protector of Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. And, whether or not it's Andy Dalton or Fields, I know I almost called him Andy Reid. I wish he was Andy Reid. Matt Nagy has kind of heat and hawed about who's going to start. Tevin Jenkins is going to be a big piece to the Bears offense going forward. So back to the Nick stuff. I mean, yeah, puckpros.com, P-U-C-K. I think it's P-R-O-S-E.com. That piece will be up. I'll share it on Twitter and I'll tag you in it and him, and we could get that going because that should make him a fair amount of viewership.
Right off the bat, what's your favorite clinching goal?
Oh, that's easy.
Is it Henrique?
Adam Henrique scored at 103 of the overtime against the New York Rangers to send the New Jersey Devils to the Stanley Cup final. I know every little detail of that play. I can recite the entire play from the blue line in. I'm not going to do it, but I can. And it is just the Devils beat the Rangers in overtime to go to the Stanley Cup final. I mean, it was just so special. That place, Prudential Center, just went banana lands. An honorable mention, I would say, is Patrick Kane's OT GWG, not in the Stanley Cup final, against the Kings to send them to the final. Is that I know what you're thinking. I need to say, and that's also an honorable mention. I'm not stupid, but for me, the Kings were so good, and the fact that the Hawks kind of made easy work out of them doing it in 5 games intrigues me because Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves, they took advantage of a very good like chippy play made by Brian Bickle. Brian Bickle like toe picked and got the puck to Taves, who came in on a 2-on-1 with Voynov, who before he became a prick of a human being, like he was a very good defenseman. So if he would have broken up a sweet pass for Taves and Kane, like that wouldn't have surprised me.
Yeah.
So,
what did you think I was going to say?
Oh, for me, like another honorable mention is the Bergeron goal in overtime against the Maple Leafs in Game 7. They were losing the game 4-1, and Bergeron tied it with the goalie pulled. They scored 2 goals with the goalie pulled to tie it, and then Bergeron in overtime on I think it was assisted. All these goals, I know exactly who they're assisted by. The Bergeron goal was from Marchand and Tyler Seguin. The Kane goal was from Taves and Bickle, and the Henrique goal was assisted by Kovalchuk and Ponikarovsky. So, little history on those.
Yeah, that's easily my favorite, and then obviously, like I'm interested to see where like the Bobby Orr goal falls, if that'll end up being number 1.
Yeah, I mean, those are all personal that I got to see with my own 2 eyes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But he said it's like through the league history. So
yeah, no doubt that should probably be at or near the top. I was a long way away from even being a twinkle in my parents' eye when Bobby Orr scored that goal.
Yeah,
I didn't get to see it live, but I know who it was assisted by. Wasn't it Derek Sanderson who fed it to Bobby Orr and he went flying through the air? It is good to see this breaking news on the bottom of the screen. The Bears announced Soldier Field will be at full capacity this season. Would you like to go to a game, sir?
Yes.
I think it'd be great. I'd like to see – I'm actually willing to shell out some money. It's going to be big money, especially after the year.
Well, I would be kind of surprised if we don't go to a game.
Yeah, well, with SeatGeek and, stuff like that, it's easy to buy tickets. And I kind of want to shell out the money if they're going to play Green Bay. I know those tickets aren't cheap. I've never been to a Bears-Packers game. I was at that game against the Rams. It was actually my birthday 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. It was Sunday Night Football. That was one of the best sporting experiences I've ever been to. And I know you had a good time. We had some Rico Beanie before. That was delicious. Any games in particular you'd want to hit? They play Tom in Tampa.
Yeah, I know. I'd have to look
at the schedule.
Yeah.
And you know what else I could see? I know we got a couple buddies who are into this. The day they announced Justin Fields is starting that upcoming week, I'd be on my SeatGeek app within 5 minutes. Like when they
I'm sure a lot of people.
Yeah, when the White Sox announced Michael Kopech was making his MLB debut, we were at lunch, and we had tickets before we even left the diner.
Yeah.
So, I mean, good stuff. Did you have another series clincher in mind that you wanted to talk about, or were those the two?
I was just those two. I mean, the Bergeron won Game 7 in Toronto in 2013 is my number 1. But
absolutely. It's hard to argue with that. I know me and you jumped up and basically ran around the bottom of our basement when that happened. So that was good times. Speaking of the playoffs, we got a current edition of the playoffs going on right now. Which series you want to start with?
Let's start out east.
Out east, even though 3 of the final 4 teams play on the East Coast because of COVID. So it's a little weird setup this year. You got the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Islanders. They are currently tied 1-1 in the series. The Islanders took the first one, and then Tampa Bay went ahead and kind of dominated last night. What are your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of the Islanders in the last series when they beat Boston. They're a very frustrating team, and Tampa got a taste of that in Game 1. But I think the Lightning are, whether you can say what you want about them being $18 million over the cap or whatnot, whatever Dougie Hamilton was crying about after his loss, it's going to help them. They're, in my opinion, the clear best team in the playoffs out of the remaining 4. And they have such a good group that I feel like they're going to be able to adjust against the Islanders in a way that Boston just wasn't able to. So, and we saw that in Game 2. Andrei Vasilevsky was unreal, and Tampa's offense were figuring it out. Yeah, they had some goalie troubles, the Islanders, and that was a little like weird, but I think the Tampa Bay Lightning should be able to make work of the Islanders. I think they're the better team, and it'll be interesting how it shapes up when they head over to the Coliseum for Game 3.
For sure. We kind of talked about Tampa a little bit earlier in the show when reminiscing about the Blackhawks 2015. They took that team in 2015, which was better on paper than the Hawks, and they still lost. They've added what they needed to win since then in the last 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you think of what Braden Point has done for them. A third-round pick, you can argue he'd be the number 1 overall pick if that draft were redone. For those who don't know, it's probably a toss-up between him, David Pastrnak, and Leon Draisaitl as the top 3 from that draft. And Pastrnak was late first round. Draisaitl went 3rd overall. And Braden Point went in the 3rd round. So to even be in that conversation is unbelievable. They're a good team, man. And there's nothing that they did that's illegal. You might think it's bullshit, as Dougie Hamilton eloquently pointed out. But you know who these rules are collectively bargained by? The players and the league. So, I mean, you don't like it? Fix it in the next CBA announcement. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't have a single issue with it. Like, they got to where they were at without Nikita Kucherov. That says something to how good the team is, and he was hurt. You can't rush a guy's injury. Maybe he wanted to get 110% healthy before going into the playoffs, so he did just that. It's just playing the rule book to your advantage. Every team could do it. You have to get kind of lucky, but
yeah, if you're the Hurricanes, you're not going to ask Sebastian Aho to sit out next season to save money.
Exactly.
We wouldn't make the playoffs then.
Exactly.
So, you know, it almost makes the Tampa Bay Lightning look better. The fact that they were able to be amongst the best teams in the league. They didn't win the division or the President's Trophy, which they might have.
Oh, I think they for sure would have.
Had they had Kucherov. I mean, Nikita Kucherov is the best winger in the NHL. Like, probably right there. I think Kane, Pastrnak, and Marchand and Marner are like right there.
But who knows? Without Kucherov, then they probably have to, make a move, trade some guy off the cap. Tyler Johnson probably isn't on the team. Who knows what they end up having to do?
Yeah, I mean, they put Tyler Johnson on waivers and no one took him, and he's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anybody with issues with Tampa, they're not going to be able to do that next year unless Kucherov gets hurt again.
It'll be an interesting offseason for them next year.
Yeah, they're not – he had to actually be injured because I don't care what anyone says. He might have, been out an extra long 2 weeks. He was probably fine. But Kucherov would not have just wholeheartedly, willingly missed the entire season if he wasn't injured. I mean, he's on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and he wants to put up those kinds of numbers to get to the Hall of Fame and be one of the all-time great Tampa Bay Lightning players and one of the all-time great Team Russia players. He's got a lot on the line in his career, and he's not underpaid anymore. He used to be. But, I mean, these guys, they're proud of themselves, and they want to play. So he definitely was hurt at some point. They might have stretched it an extra 2 weeks or so. That's my thing, because Stamkos got hurt at the end and Kucherov got to come in. They just flip-flopped each other's place on the injured list, and then there's no cap once the playoffs roll around. But what's your take on the Islanders?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm wondering if they were good in game 1. Yeah, Tampa was resting, or they had a lot more time off than the Islanders did. So, I mean, could have been a little bit of that, but I don't know. I don't really think the Islanders can get it done against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think they spent so much. You would have thought they won the cup after they beat Boston, the way their fans reacted and everything. So I don't know. I think I don't want to say they used it all. They put it all on the table too early. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, but I don't know. They just, especially in the last game, they don't impress me.
Yeah, I mean, they play a style that at home could be tough to deal with if you're Tampa. It was huge for them to steal one at the Amalie Arena.
Yeah, it was. About the way they play, I think it's only as effective against 90% of the league, and Tampa Tampa just falls into that 10% that can make adjustments and just figure it out. And the Islanders, once you figure them out and the way they play, they're not that good to me. It's a very easy system. Once you're able to figure out how to beat their system, it's very easy to do. And it's very, like, the Islanders don't really change it up too much. Like, they play a very specific way of that shut down, clogging D. And we saw in game 1 of the Boston series where the Bruins figured it out, and then the Islanders sucked. And then ever since then, it's like, even the game that Boston won, it's like they weren't able to figure out they figured them out in game 1, but then once the Islanders, got it, then Boston was not able to figure it out. Tampa's one of the teams that when they figure it out, they're going to just keep doing it. And I think that's the way it's going to be. I don't think the Islanders their system matches up well against the Tampa Bay Lightning's offense, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get that. I think part of the issue, Tampa's a lot deeper than the Bruins. Mm-hmm. The Bruins are very top heavy. Now, I think the Bruins can win a cup with their core 1 or 2 more years left, but Tampa's just a little bit deeper, so that allows a team like the Islanders to have trouble with them. But I want to move over to Vegas versus Montreal really quick. It's a dynamite series. Montreal didn't look too good in the first game, and Vegas leads the series 1-0, and they play again tonight. I'm curious what you think. Are the Golden Knights just too good?
Yeah, I hate the Canadians, but I also kind of feel bad for them because it's going to look worse than it is. It's going to look like the North Division sucks, and that the first 2 series for Montreal wasn't validated because they're going to get destroyed by Vegas. But you kind of have to look at it from the other side, and I do agree. It's just Vegas being too good. I'm not going to discredit Montreal's first 2 round wins in the North Division, and a lot of people were making jokes like, oh yeah, whoever wins the North Division is just going to get shit on by whoever they play because the North Division stinks. You could say that, and yeah, people are going to say that, but the fact that it's Vegas and just how good Vegas plays, Marc-Andre Fleury especially, Max Pacioretty, Mark Stone, the way these guys are playing right now, it, for me, unvalidates that fact of them just being good because they were in the North Division. It unvalidates that because Vegas is just too good.
Yeah, so I think it could go either way. I think Vegas can quiet Montreal can quiet the North Division haters by putting up a good fight, even if they lose the series, but it's in 6 and some of the games are close. Like they kind of do like what the Wild did, or even what the Avalanche did, make Vegas struggle a little bit at times, snag a game or 2. If they get destroyed in 4 straight games, like if they play another 3 games and all of them have a similar result to Monday's game, yeah, it's going to make the North Division look brutal. It's going to make the Leafs look bad. It's going to make the Edmonton Oilers look like puke. And the Winnipeg Jets are going to have their win over the Oilers a little less validated too. And you talk about the sweep train, it's possible.
Yeah, I still think and I don't think so. I think Montreal will be better in Montreal. That place is so hard to play. Vegas.
Yeah, I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm saying if it does, then that's a bad look.
It is, but you just got to also look at Vegas and just see how good they are to kind of just take it with a grain of salt.
Oh, I know what you're saying because Vegas is damn good.
Yeah, but I mean, we all know how high I was on Colorado, and Vegas shoved that right down my throat. So
makes the Minnesota Wild look better. I still stand by my take earlier in the playoffs. The Wild are a great team, and they pushed Vegas to the brink. And, they couldn't get it done in Game 7. They put up a hard, valiant effort. It's a young team with a good coach. But, I mean, Vegas was ultimately too strong. So I highly encourage people to watch this game tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun to see Montreal try and step up to the plate here.
Yeah.
There's not much more than that on this series, just because Vegas was significantly better than Montreal in the first game. And it's weird seeing an East team play a West team in the conference finals. But, I mean, it's not even the conference finals. It's
the semifinals.
It's the semifinals, exactly. But, I mean, it'll be interesting. Let's go Sox. I agree. We're going to talk about them in just a second to preview tomorrow. But, I mean, do you have any last thoughts on Vegas versus Montreal?
Not really. It's a great great goaltending performance battle against the two. Carey Price, he's been one of the best players in the entire playoffs versus Fleury, who's just right up there with him. He's up for the Vezina this season, and he's just been lights out in every game that he's played. So, and Carey Price hasn't been bad either. He made an amazing save in game one, and it's just, Vegas, he can't save everything. Vegas is just too good.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the goaltending matchup for sure.
I agree. There's definitely going to be more to talk about on this series next show when there's a little more to talk about. It is interesting. I see a comment in the chat about Cole Caulfield. He's just freaking sweet.
He's the real deal.
And he scored a goal. It was his first career playoff goal. I think there's big things in store for that guy. He's going to be a big part of Montreal's future. And I can't wait to see if he's able to impact the series just a little bit more, because I don't necessarily want to see Vegas destroy Montreal. I want to see both of these series be a good lead up to the Stanley Cup final. I mean, that's what this is all about. That's what this show is about, like getting to the Stanley Cup final. Like, we're a week or so away from the biggest series probably for our show and for anyone who follows hockey. Like, that's our Christmas. So, I mean, I want to see the best leading up to it, and knowing that these teams that made it there went to war to get there, and now there's just one final battle. Like, I cannot wait.
And he's got a new best friend in J.J. Watt.
J.J. Watt's support of Cole Caulfield is awesome.
He was rocking the yeah, didn't he tweet about him when he scratched him or something? Or when he was scratched?
Yeah, J.J. Watt loves Cole Caulfield because he went to Wisconsin,
okay.
which is where J.J. Watt played his college football.
Yeah, and then when he scratched him, he sent those tweets out. They went viral, and then he got put in the lineup. He ended up doing really good, and then Watt was tweeting yeah, hey, good call by me or something like that. And then I saw later or this past week he was rocking the Caulfield jersey, so it'll be interesting to see, Cole Caulfield show some love over at J.J. Watt, maybe rocking one of his jerseys.
Yeah, with the Arizona Cardinals for the first time.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see Watt play for the Cardinals. So it was some good hockey talk, and, we'll definitely be getting into the thick of things with each series. We only got a couple things under our belt. We went a little more in depth with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Islanders, but that series just has a little more right now.
There's been another game too.
Huh? Oh yeah, there's been an extra game. Each team has one. So far, all we've seen in the Vegas series is just Vegas kind of dominate, and Carey Price really good, and they still got killed. So to segue, we're gonna get into some overtime. Welcome to overtime. You know what we do here. You don't always get overtime, but when you do, you're lucky. Just like in real hockey. That's kind of the point here. There's been some fantastic goalie play. Why don't you let people know?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to it. We had Andrei Vasilevsky. He's been excellent for the Tampa Bay Lightning all playoffs long. That's my team going the rest of the way. I'm rooting for them to get it done, a repeat. And what's up?
I said you don't say, looking at your get up here.
Yeah. So Andrei Vasilevsky, he was awesome in their most recent win. He made 24 saves and 26 shots. The Islanders got a third period goal, which I really wasn't expecting, but he was excellent. He's getting it done. And then over on the other side, in the other series, I already mentioned him, Marc-Andre Fleury. He could potentially win the playoff MVP if Vegas gets it done. It'll be a toss-up between him and Pacioretty, in my opinion, but Marc-Andre Fleury is just the clear number one guy. He's getting better every game he plays. He made 28 saves in game one and only gave up that one goal to Cole Caulfield. And then also Pekka Rinne. We talked about the trophies, kind of not playoff related, but he was up for the King Clancy Trophy for his contributions to the city and his outside charity work. And he's been with the same team for 15 years now. So I was very happy he won it. And the amazing work that he continues to do for the community and city of Nashville is just amazing. And I'm happy for him to get recognized for it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. That's some great stuff. Now, segueing away from hockey for a minute, we have our show tomorrow. Crosstown Crosstalk. I highly encourage everyone to watch. If you like baseball, me and Joey will be doing a lot with, the Cubs and the White Sox. But tomorrow specifically, we're going to be a little MLB as a whole heavy. just based on everything that's been in the news lately. I may or may not go off on the MLB. You know, this was a positive, lighthearted show here talking about hockey because we're in a good mood talking about some hockey. But expect Angry Vinny to show up tomorrow because we're going to talk about some sticky stuff. And I'm not saying I like hearing players use spider tack or anything like that, but I'm going to come to the defense of some players here tomorrow. I don't know how you feel about it.
We'll talk more about it tomorrow. We talked about it last week, so it's kind of weird. We're talking about this shit 2 weeks in a row now, but it's just the MLB, they came out with some news, and we're going to talk about it. So make sure you tune in tomorrow.
Absolutely. To preview, the White Sox lost Nick Madrigal. Since our last show, we found out he's going to be out for the entire season. At first, it was a question of whether or not rest and rehabilitation are going to allow him to come back by September, October. He underwent the surgery on his injury, and I have an article on a player that I believe that the White Sox could make a trade for. That's Adam Frazier of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I truly believe that there's a chance that they go out and get a second baseman. I think Adam Frazier is probably the best option for that. Danny Mendick's a good player. There's good stuff to be had with him, but I'm not necessarily sure he's an everyday second baseman on a World Series caliber team. Maybe, guys step up and magic happens when you win the World Series. You never know. But I highly encourage people to head on over to SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided network, to check out those trade packages and see what I believe it would take to get it done. I can't wait to talk baseball tomorrow. It's going to be good stuff. I highly encourage everyone to watch Crosstown Crosstalk. It'll be at the same time tomorrow. It's a very similar setup to this show, and we enjoy bringing you, baseball, hockey. Specifically on this show today, I think we had some good hockey chatter.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like you said, baseball, I mean, it's just things are boiling over more and more each week. So,
yep. And then Jacob deGrom is facing the Cubs tonight. So that'll be interesting to see how that all goes down. But, today with the talk about the Hawks and the stuff that Chief was tweeting out and all the things that he believes could happen, some good conversation. We'd like to thank Nick Villano for joining us today. It was really good stuff talking about the New Jersey Devils. Make sure you head on over to pucksandpitchforks.com where you could read his articles and mine. I really enjoyed having him on. Is there anything you want to plug before we head out today?
My Twitter, Joey Parise. I'm trying to grow little by little. So if you're not following me yet, go give me a follow. I'm not too annoying. I don't tweet, a million times a day. The Bruins aren't playing anymore, so you're not going to
shot at me.
No, I'm not taking a shot at you. I'm just saying, I tweet what I tweet when I feel like
Maybe
it.
You should tweet more. You'll get more followers.
Maybe I should tweet more. I mean, that, especially now that the Bruins are out, because all my tweets before is like when someone scores, it's usually just me freaking out in all caps. So, I mean, maybe I'll tweet about my days from now on, how you're doing. And I think my last tweet was Tyler Glasnow stinks when the Sox were hitting off of him in the bottom of the second inning, I believe.
You jinxed him. We're going to talk plenty about Glasnow tomorrow. I appreciate anybody who watched about talking about hockey today. There's a lot of good stuff going on around the NHL. Make sure you watch the semifinals, as we're calling it this year. Next show, we might be into the Stanley Cup final, but I doubt it. I kind of hope that we are able to preview. It would be so great if it would just line up where we could perfectly preview the Stanley Cup final. Like, let's say it begins on Wednesday night or Thursday night of next week. That is my dream. That's what I'll be rooting for. If someone's down 3-1, I'll be rooting for that team to close it out just so that we could perfectly preview it going into our next show. Yeah. And, we have some special guests coming out on both of our shows. So I appreciate everyone for watching, and thank you for listening.
Yep.